session. And the title of the session this afternoon is Conversion Optimization. And with that, I would like to welcome your panel leader. And he's CEO of Blue Acorn. And his name is Kevin Eichelberger. Take it over.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Looks like this is the last breakout session of the day, so we'll try to keep this short and sweet and let everybody get to the last keynotes and head out to some partying tonight. But Magento came to us a few months ago, or not even, and gave us a pretty tough challenge, and that is to talk about conversion optimization in a 30-minute window. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation we can have about these things. I know I speak for all the panelists that we could speak for days on a lot of these topics, and each one of them has a lot of depth that we can put into them. So we're going to try to keep this short and sweet and stick to about a 30-minute presentation and then give you guys time for Q&A at the end. So up on the stage with me, we have myself. Again, I'm the founder and CEO of Blue Acorn. We're a Magento Gold partner. I am a board member of the Magento Developer Certification Board, and I've been working in the e-commerce space for about 10 years. And next to me, we have Mike.
Hello, my name is Mike Wadke. I'm the Director of E-commerce at a modern furniture designer, manufacturer, and retailer named Blue Dot out of Minneapolis. I have about 10 years of online consumer marketing and operations experience. And prior to my role at Blue Dot, I ran e-commerce for a company called Christopher & Banks, which is a women's apparel retailer, currently ranked, I think, number 277 in the Internet Retailer Top 500.
And Eric.
Hi guys, I'm Eric Best. I'm the founder at Mercent. And like these guys started my e-commerce career a long time ago. First at Microsoft and then at Amazon, managing third-party seller relationships, among other things. And Mercent's the latest of a number of e-commerce companies that I've been involved with. And what we do is help retailers. We serve about 400 brands today. We help those retailers express their product catalog and offer information across a network of online shopping and advertising channels.
Thanks, guys. So the format of today's session, we're going to talk just a little bit about what is conversion optimization, what defines a conversion. Then we're going to go through what we call the 5 tenets of conversion. We're going to get a definition of what each of those tenets is, some examples and some stories from the panelists here, and some action items for you to take home and execute when you get back to the offices with loads of momentum. And then again, we'll have about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, so we're going to be very conscious about the time that we're using up, try to be very concise and to the point so that we have time to field your questions and get some expert advice from the guys next to me. So first, what is conversion optimization? So as we talk about conversions and optimizing conversion, I think it's important to at least get some structure and definition around what we consider a conversion. So a conversion can mean many different things, obviously, and for most of us in the room, either as service providers or vendors or retailers, a conversion in our mind is a sale on our site. But there are many different examples of conversions and many different important conversions that us in the e-commerce industry need to make sure we're paying attention to. There are newsletter signups, there are using a store finder, there are a lot of different conversions and metrics that we should be putting in place to measure those conversions to make sure we're not solely focused on the sale, but we're focused on getting value out of every customer that's coming to our site. So conversion optimization is the practice of increasing the ratio of people that convert. Again, most of the focus when we talk about conversion rates and as we talk today is going to be primarily focused on the e-commerce conversion rate, how many people are buying a product on your site. But again, you want to always look at every opportunity to connect with a customer and optimize each of those experiences to get multiple different points of conversion. So in the e-commerce space, conversion rate as a KPI is typically measured as the number of people that convert over the unique values, visitors that hit your site. So it's important to keep in mind also that conversion rate is not an exact measure. You have customers that are visiting your sites from their office computer, going home to their tablets. And so while you have 2 unique visits, you might have 1 conversion, a 50% conversion rate, when in reality, you have a 100% conversion rate. You have people that are using mobile and using the web to make in-store purchasing decisions. So again, the metric that we look at as conversion is an exact science. There are people that convert maybe over the phone after they visit your website. So it's always important to look at conversion rate as a metric, as something to relatively gauge yourself on, and to use that to always benchmark and continue to analyze and improve over time. And if you look at industry statistics, average e-commerce conversion rates usually vary between 2 to 3%. It varies by industry, it varies by product, by marketplace. And again, if you look at yourself and say, I'm converting at 8% or I'm converting at 1%, I wouldn't focus so much on the industry averages. Focus on where you are now and focus on how you can improve those, because there's always room for improvement no matter where you fall into that spectrum. So we talk about the e-commerce conversion funnel. You look at the top of this funnel, everybody that's going to your site as potential customers. And certainly you don't have everyone going to your site with the intent of purchasing. People are going to your site for a variety of reasons. So really, when you look at your true conversion rate, you would whittle that number down of your overall visitors to really those that had the intent to convert to begin with. And if you look at specifically in the sales process for e-commerce and where abandonment happens, typically if you look at those that have the intent to purchase something by adding a product to the cart, those that actually proceed to check out, the average shopping cart abandonment is around 75%. Which is a pretty staggering number, and so a lot of things we're going to talk about today is how to decrease that number and how we can improve your overall conversion rates. So again, we've talked about the 5 tenets of conversion, and so we've defined those as having a compelling offer, the experience for your customers, using data to drive conversions, using testing to improve conversions, and then using relevance and personalization to improve conversions. So we're going to talk about each of these 5 tenets. And we'll give you some examples of some of the things that we've done in the past ourselves, and hopefully give you some food for thought as you walk out of here and things that you can apply yourselves. So the first tenet we define is the offer. And so the offer is you have to have something that people want. You have to have the channel and the meaning for doing that, but you have to have the right selection, product availability, the right prices. And notice we don't say the lowest prices or the widest availability. There is different markets have different pricing structures and different ways to convert and speak to your customers. So it's not always the lowest price, it's the right price. And obviously shipping is a big factor to that. So your offer as a whole, from one end to the other, people need to want to buy something from you to begin with. So Mike has really good examples of how they use customer surveys to actually improve their offer as a business.
So earlier this year, we took a look at all of the ways that we could use data or other customer insight to improve our business. And one of the first things we turned to was the fact that we don't know everything we want to know. More than anybody, our customers know what we should be doing. So we used a SurveyMonkey survey in February of this year, where we reached out to people in a number of different ways. We used email to reach them, we used social channels, we put it on our site, and we had an overwhelming response. Over 3,000 people started the survey, 86% of them completed it. And this wasn't a 1 or 2 question survey. This was an in-depth 17-question long survey that touched on everything from, are we doing a good job? Were you able to complete the reason for your visit today? All the way to, why do you come to this site? Where else do you shop? And what we found was that people weren't just willing to say yes or no, but they were willing to give a lot of detail. If you look at the graphic, the bottom question was, were you able to successfully complete the reason for your visit to our site today? Yes or no question, very simple. 134 people said no. That's gold right there. I want to find out what we're doing wrong. Of that 134, 114 of them actually told us why, in great detail, what we were doing wrong in their opinion so that we could improve.
Right. Excellent example. And as we were putting these slide decks together, I was actually going across a number of Magento sites trying to find good examples of Magento retailers using customer survey tools to gather feedback. And I was actually rather surprised that most don't. I had a very hard time finding sites that are actually using customer feedback tools on their site. Second tenet, again, along the lines of the same tenet, another way to improve your offer is by demonstrating expertise. I think you all saw Jody from EcoMom in this morning's keynote, and what a great job EcoMom has done in building their business around providing an expert approach to these products. They hand select these products at 70 plus factors to make sure that they're offering you the best products so that you as a consumer don't have to do the research yourself. It saves you time, it builds confidence, and repeat visitors. So EcoMom is a great example of using expertise as a means to improve the offer and drive conversions. Next, we're going to talk about evaluating pricing, and Eric will talk about an example of some things that they've done in the past.
Yeah, Mercent is launching at this event a price optimization plugin for marketplaces that's compatible with Magento. It's an extension. And we've been pricing dynamically and automatically based on real-time competitive intelligence our customers' catalogs for some time. The key here is, we'll talk about shipping in a minute, but ultimately there is some substitution risk for your products or services. So there are techniques to get out of the price comparison game, if you will, with your competition, but ultimately at some point it comes back to the fact that consumers do have a choice over what they're buying. And so beyond brand differentiation and the other techniques that you can apply, again, to sort of focus on areas other than price and offer, you need a strategy for balancing top-line revenue growth with your profit margin. Where we operate is really up funnel, so really ahead of the e-commerce storefront, across a variety of channels where you're engaging with consumers that are evaluating and making purchases. And we've seen that the more data that you can provide to shoppers, particularly competitive price point, information about the clarity of your shipping latency, your shipping price, in the context of your reputation, and the other elements that uniquely differentiate your brand, those are all critical to get in front of the consumers as soon as you possibly can. And we believe that this will become more and more critical as the transparency of pricing grows and the frequency with which your competition is actively or dynamically pricing their catalog increases.
Great, thanks, Eric. So another way to improve your offer is by emphasizing your value proposition. So a lot of companies obviously have very strong value propositions, and if you don't, I would advise you to come up with one. But in the event that you do, you got to make sure that you're communicating it at every touch point with your customers. Off-site, on-site, post-purchase, at every interaction with the customers, always be reinforcing your value proposition. And by reinforcing the value proposition, you're going to build a lot of repeat visits, but also confidence in the consumer and purchasing from you. So it's a really good example from Bonobos on how they emphasize their value proposition. You'll see this kind of messaging across the entire site. And so Mike will talk a little bit about how shipping can be used to evaluate your offer and how that can be used to improve conversions.
So I think the stats up there speak volumes and speak for themselves. A lot of people weigh the cost of shipping and shipping delivery times into the purchase decision. For us, as furniture providers, it's tough to ship a 400-pound bed for free. Now, there's a number of you in this room who can pull those different levers and use free shipping. For us, we can't do that. But what we can do is that we can be very competitive and we can put our shipping message forefront. The graphic you'll see here is on the top of every single product page on our website, because our customer survey told us that shipping is one of the factors that the customer rates very highly in determining whether to make a purchase or not. What we did then is we also looked at where do we need to be from a rate perspective. Originally, we were a flat 10% rate. We said, let's throw caution in the wind and test a number of different things. Should it be a multi-table rate? Should it be a lower fixed rate? And where we landed was, based on the results and based on the testing, we landed at 5% flat rate shipping. Now, it doesn't seem like much of a difference maker, even though shipping at 10% for us is a loss leader, but this drove well into the high six figures of additional annualized revenue. So it was a big win for us just to change a little bit of the perception of the prices coming down.
Great. So as we go through each of these tenets, at the end of each one, I'd ask each of the panelists to come up with one recommended action item for you to take home with you. So we'll start off with Eric on the end with his first recommended action item.
Yeah, so the key here, guys, is to know what your competitors are selling and the price points and shipping offers, their seller feedback ratings and so on are across the web, and use that as a key input into your own pricing decisions.
So I spoke to mine a little bit earlier. Don't be afraid to ask your customers for feedback. Even the bad feedback, the worst feedback, is probably the best feedback that you're going to receive. So ask frequently, ask often.
And mine's going to be to define that unique brand voice and make sure you're using it at every customer touch point. So tenet number 2 is the experience, and this is about the medium for people to convert. It's how they find you, it's how they interact with you, it is how they actually purchase or convert, whatever your conversion metric might be. So this comes down to consistency in off-site to on-site experience and messaging. It comes down to what I call shoppability, which is usability, findability, the ability to find and seamlessly purchase what you're looking for. Site performance is a big factor, obviously, in the experience for someone. Obviously, slow performance can drastically inhibit conversions. And then, of course, supporting technology and being where your customers are. It's not just your website anymore. It's mobile. It's social. It is being everywhere where your customers are experiencing your brand. So the first one we're going to talk about as a means to improve the experience is site performance. And this is just one graph as an example that shows you how dramatically conversion rates can impact or be impacted by the site performance load time of your landing page. I think we've all seen statistics about performance and all know how important it is, but when you can quantify it in that 1 second delay leading to a 7% loss in conversions, not to mention less page views and lower customer satisfaction, these are really telling stories, and I think all of us can probably look at ourselves and say, what would it take to improve our site by 1 second, and how much revenue would that generate? And there's always an opportunity to improve performance, and certainly there's a cost to it, but in most cases, the benefit of increased sales is going to outweigh any cost associated to that performance gain. So I always highly encourage the first thing ever to do when you look at the experience is always make the site faster. So I'm going to turn over to Eric to talk about how experience starts at the top of the funnel.
Yeah, time and again at Mercent, we see e-commerce merchants invest in great differentiated content on their website. And then they turn around and what they're syndicating out to the advertising e-commerce channels where they're first touching the consumer is like this tiny subset, it's a sliver of the overall data or content that they have to work with. It's undifferentiated, and ultimately it really doesn't express the brand or the offer effectively to the consumer at the point at which they're first beginning to form an opinion or make a decision about that purchase. This is critical, particularly in channels where you have high-intent shoppers, comparison shopping engines, product ads, and so on. Because again, you have a consumer who has a higher propensity to convert once you get them to your storefront than you might on other channels, say social. But here's an example of a case where you can actually have advertising channels that are going to be more merchandising focused than maybe your own e-commerce storefront. Here's an example of a channel where contextual images actually allow you to shop within user-generated content. So you see an outfit you like and you can actually grab a link to the item. And again, here's a screenshot. One of our clients that runs on the Magento platform, Barebones Workwear, is promoting their products through Google Product Search. And again, you'll see that the attributes that are syndicated to this channel, the titles and descriptions, the hero shots, as they call them, you know, the high-quality images of the product taken from multiple angles, all of that information, the high-resolution imagery and so on, is being syndicated to these third-party channels so that the experience that the shopper has on these third-party locations is equivalent to the experience that you've invested all that time and effort building on your own storefront. And just a final thought on this is that increasingly we find that conversion may not happen in your own shopping cart. You know, eBay, Amazon, Buy.com, Sears, Walmart, and so on all have open marketplace programs to varying degrees, and these are opportunities to capture volume, create incremental order value in locations elsewhere beyond your own storefront. In the case of our client, we saw within 6 months of improving their data feed programs, an overall 21% increase in the revenue volume that we were driving through those programs to their site.
Great. And so Mike will talk about mobile and supported devices.
So just like conversions are not just happening inside your shopping cart, they're not happening just in the standard old internet browser window on your PC anymore either. They're happening across multiple devices. Great Magento example here from North Face. They have sites that work across each device type that is out there. You have to know what you're looking for as your consumer is, and figure out how do you build each site to tailor to each device. What somebody might be looking for on their mobile phone might be a store locator. What they might be looking for on their iPad is a more seamless experience with your regular website. It's important to understand what devices they're using and what the end goal of each device is, and build from there.
Right. And another way to improve the experience is QA testing. So we had a client that came to us not too recent future, but not too distant past, I should say, that they came to us and said, hey, take a look at our analytics and tell us what we can do to improve. And obviously their site-wide conversion rate, as you can see, isn't great, but there's one glaring number here that 21% of visitors are essentially unable to convert. And this was after IE9 was released, and they really had no idea that IE9 users were not able to complete a purchase at all. And after we exposed this in analytics, we did some full regression QA testing, found a number of bugs that would otherwise have cost them $1 million in revenue for the year. So QA testing is certainly something you want to make sure you're doing frequently and doing often to make sure that the experience is not only fast, but it's also bug-free. So again, recommended action items, we'll start over with Eric.
Yeah, so again, this is all about taking all of that valuable differentiated content, that brand positioning that you created, and making sure that you're expressing it anywhere and everywhere that consumers are evaluating your products.
I believe mine's about making sure you understand what devices and technologies your customers are using to visit your properties, designing for those specifically to drive conversions across each of those.
Mine's going to say improve your site performance response times by 1 second. If you get 2, even better, but let's just take it one step at a time, go for 1 second. All right, so tenet number 3 is data, and using data to actually identify problem areas and underlying opportunities. So this isn't just web analytics data necessarily. There's product and offer data that can be used to improve conversions. There is obviously web analytics data. There is advanced analytics tools and information that you can gather. And then of course there's demographic data. So the first way to improve conversions from a data aspect is to first of all make sure your analytics implementation is a robust one. One of the things that if you talk to Google and their analytics consultants, they'll tell you that the standard analytics JavaScript that's included is never sufficient for a robust implementation. There's always the need to enhance the analytics data that you're gathering. Now certainly you got to make sure you're using that data and you have a plan and you have a strategy and you have someone responsible for using that data to help drive decisions and marketing decisions. But first of all, you need good data to use. So it's always important to tag events, to set up dashboards, to make sure you have your profiles and goals and alerts set up, and to always make data a priority. I would probably say that data is probably one of the most underutilized pieces of information that we have as marketers at our disposal that is neglected in many cases completely.
So one of the tools that we use outside of just Google Analytics data is we use a tool called Crazy Egg. It's a heat map. The screenshot here is simply of a product page. It's our one-night stand sleeper sofa. What we found out here, and Kevin, if you turn the slide, we found out using this data that people weren't just interested in what Eric calls the hero shot, the product by itself, or the product with a different angle to it. But what we found is that when you add more alternate images, and in our case environmental shots where the product is in the setting, conversion goes up significantly, over 10% improvement on the product page when we add these additional images. So it's very important to showcase your product as best as possible, not just by itself, but how it's being used as well. The second example of this is from our homepage, and there's a black box, it's hard to see. But we had some challenges with getting people to do a couple of different things on our site. One, sign up for our catalog, and then 2, look at all the other cool content that we have. We know that people aren't going to buy a $3,000 sofa once every other week. We have to find ways to engage the customer on our site. So we used the heat map technology to change things. We reworded things like get connected to receive a catalog and be very blunt about it. We changed the term for our bonus tracks pages where you see all of our videos and blog and all of that stuff to simply the inverse of why are they not clicking? Just do not click here. And over 300% increase without doing any marketing behind it, simply by saying do not click here.
That was the first place I clicked when I came to the website.
And that's where you should click.
I was scared to click on it actually myself. I follow directions. All right, so Eric, talk about using product data.
Yeah, so this is another screenshot of the Google search engine results page, and another Mersant client that's running on the Magento platform, selling ceiling fans and other domestic products. And I just wanted to point out here again, along this theme of where your content and data matters, X storefront, right, out in front of your storefront and beside your storefront across the web. Google has launched a variety of new programs that are specifically tailored at retail advertisers. And again, these are specifically focusing in-market shoppers who are performing keyword searches for specific product terms and so on. Whereas Google product search, you may know as Frugal, has been around for a long time. A variety of paid alternatives to Google product search have emerged in the last year, and we're seeing 700-800% increases in the traffic and revenue volume that we're seeing through these channels. So for this particular client, by participating in product listing ads, in the Google affiliate network, product extensions to AdWords, and other related programs that are now available through Google, we were able to drive paid search revenue up by 30% while simultaneously reducing their ad spend by 28%. It was a total return on investment increase for their paid search campaign of 82%.
Very good. All right, so on to our action items for this tenant, and as a time check, we got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So Eric, you go first.
Yeah, so one key on the analytics that's worth mentioning is we often see that e-commerce merchants are very good at tracking the behavior of ads and the performance of ads, but being able to tie that to the sales performance of individual products used is key.
So make sure you use funnel reporting to understand cart and checkout. I didn't speak to this, but focus on the areas that drive revenue and customer acquisition first and go from there.
And I'll say using analytics data to identify your poorest performing products, product lines, or categories, and evaluate the offer for those products and see how you can improve those offers to convert better for those poorly performing products. So the fourth tenet is focused around testing and conversion rate optimization testing specifically. And again, from a time standpoint, we really are focused on getting you guys plenty of time for Q&A, so I'm probably going to go through this rather quick. But the good news is that I will be having a webinar with Magento on June 27th, specifically on conversion rate testing in Magento. So whatever I gloss over today, you'll be able to attend that webinar and learn a little bit more about some of the things that we've done conversion testing in Magento. But again, using conversion rate testing to optimize site-wide conversion rates. I had a conversation just a few minutes ago about the HIPPO complex and about someone at the top. And does anyone know what the HIPPO stands for, by the way? Nobody? Oh, man. So highest paid person in the organization. Google uses this term rather often, and it's their advocacy for testing is to always be testing and don't follow the HIPPO. In fact, I got a nice little picture from a conversion testing conference not too long ago with a giant HIPPO. And the concept is that most of the people making decisions about your site, how it looks, how it acts, how it functions, are usually the bosses, the highest paid people in the organization that really don't have a clue about what they're doing. No offense to any of you in the audience. And or designers, right? So there's a lot of us that are just following advice from people that they might be very talented at what they do and their decisions might be very well sound, but testing those decisions is a critical factor in making sure that you're always optimizing and making the right decisions. So don't blindly just follow what people say and do, and what works for one might not work for you. Just because Amazon does it this way doesn't mean you should do it that way. And one of the things you hear a lot about conversion testing is the really glorified gains. So by changing a button from red to green, conversions went up 300%. These are very rare cases and mostly in landing page optimization. With e-commerce conversion testing, it is a process. You are optimizing a shopping process, and incremental gains can add up quite dramatically over time. So don't worry about getting the huge lifts by an individual test. A 5% lift here, an 8% lift there, a 3% lift, all those can add up over time, and you focus on every little segment of the shopping process, you can get some big gains in the end. But testing is a process, and it involves everything from data and psychology all the way through to wireframing, design, and coding. So as you look at how do I do testing myself, or how do I implement tests on my site, you have to look at all the pieces of this pie and make sure you have the right resources in place to get this done. Some of you might be able to do it yourselves from soup to nuts yourself. Some of you might need help in certain areas. But create a plan before you start testing and say, here's how we're going to test. Magento, much to many people's surprise, has a native integration with Google Website Optimizer. How many people here actually use that? How many of you did not know it even existed? About half and half. So the native integration with Website Optimizer allows you to test a variety of things. It's not a super crazy way that you can do testing. It's fairly limited in terms of what it can do. But what it can do is give you at least this taste for testing, at least something that you can start testing with zero development support. Zero, unless, well, HTML, right? So, but you don't have to touch your Magento code at all to execute these kind of tests. And things that you can test is product data, your main product image, product names, information about your products on the product page. You can test category images and descriptions, and I'll show you a really good example in a second. And you can split test CMS pages. This is all native to Magento that a lot of people don't use these features. So here's an example of a client, betterbraces.com, that this was their category page. And on this category page, it had a big banner that was the brand of the products in that category. So a lot of people probably do the same thing. So we look at this as an opportunity to test and say, well, is that the best use of that space? So we created a couple different variations, but that's the area we're testing. So one variation was the original one. The second variation was more of a rich header that had links to some of the more popular categories or subcategories within that brand. And then another option that was yet a third variation. So we did this test, native Magento functionality, 0 developers involved, and the results were a 45% lift in conversions for that category. It went from 6.5% to 9.5%. Really easy to do, very little investment involved, great results. But Magento's native tools might not be enough. There might be things you want to test outside of that. So there are other advanced testing tools that you can use. You can do a custom implementation of Website Optimizer. And there are other testing tools like Adobe Testing Target, Visual Website Optimizer, Unbounce, etc., that make it easier to do testing. So how many people here actually use the extension One-Step Checkout? And with One-Step Checkout, you see, yeah, why? So how many of you actually tested One-Step Checkout against the Magento native one? How did it work out? Winning. All right, good. So you'd be surprised. We run a lot of tests, and any time a client wants a custom checkout, we test it every time. And more often than not, Magento's native accordion-style checkout wins out. A lot of people don't like it for some reason. So I'll give you another example of using an advanced test. And again, it's for the same client, DJO Global. And so they have their category pages originally set up as a guided selling process. It was a step-by-step approach to finding the right knee brace for you, because there's different varieties, different types. The problem was it took a lot of clicks to get to a product page. And we saw this as an opportunity, again, to test. And so to test this with Magento, it took some trickery, and you can talk to me afterwards about the details of it. But again, we tested this against two other variations, one being the actual product grid itself with layered navigation and filtering, and a third variation which was, again, an alternate of what was there. Now, the result I'm going to show you is, again, requires explanation, but I'll try to be very fast, in that it looks like the result was worse, right? So you see the red lines, meaning that the original is the top one and the variations are the two bottom ones. To execute this test with some trickery in Magento, what we had to do is actually make our variation the original one. So in reality, the original one is the middle one with the products front and center. And that, again, improved conversions from 6.5% to 13% for this category. So it was so compelling that the client did not believe us, and they said, you have to test this again. We ran it again. Test lasted a week, same results. So you might be surprised sometimes that their belief in how to best sell their products was not, in fact, the best. So recommended action items for testing.
Yeah, key for us is being able to test pricing and offers alongside product placement and page layout.
Again, I spoke to this earlier. Test series that affect revenue and customer acquisition first. Checkout, cart, email sign up. Hit the big ones.
And I'm going to say start testing now. You got Website Optimizer integrated. There's no reason to not be testing. So tenet number 5, we'll apply glossary pretty quickly, is relevance. And the more you can speak to an individual consumer about their wants and needs and demographic and profile, the better you can be at converting them. So even with conversion testing, we're testing for the masses. We're testing for the broad stroke of your clients. We're not testing and optimizing for each individual type. And there's obviously technology constraints to doing these things, but a lot of that's come a long way in the past couple of years, and you'll continue to see that in the coming future. But by using behavioral targeting, demographic targeting, retargeting, et cetera, by knowing what someone's interested in, you can target them better in your optimization strategy. So again, Magento natively has native segmentation tools and the ability to custom target them with banners. And obviously, as just announced this morning with 1.12, that's going to be even further enhanced to not only track customers, but any visitor to your site. Eric, talk about?
Yeah, maybe just in the interest of time. I mean, obviously, bringing in-market shoppers who are already qualified and familiar with your brand back to your website is key. And there are a variety of companies, Criteo, Telepart, Datomi, Dapper, and so on that provide platforms to do this.
And again, some of the third-party tools you can implement, or you can always do something custom yourself, like Mike has done with Blue Dot.
Yep, we implemented a custom cart abandonment program where we added code into the admin panel through Lines, our integrator, to start tracking customer data the minute they start writing it. So I don't have to worry about are they a registered user or not. I know what they are looking for and how to remarket to them. And it doesn't have to be sexy from a marketing perspective. The email you see there is an email that we send out where we simply fall on the sword and say, unfortunately, you weren't able to check out. Clearly, our site failed you. Let's help you out.
Yeah, and I think the approach that they take is very unique in that it is a handcrafted message, and it is not a flashy graphical interface. And I think it'd be interesting to talk to Email Vision and List Tracks and other guys that are here about some of the success you've had with that different kind of approach.
Absolutely. 9.3% conversion rate on these emails. It's highly, highly successful with about a 30% response rate.
Great. All right, so again, one action item here, Eric.
Yeah, so the point here is that each advertising channel or third-party e-commerce channel in which you're active has its own unique demographic profile for consumers. And so blindly sending your entire assortment with the same titles, descriptions, structured attributes that are successful on your own e-commerce website may not work.
So there's gold in abandoned carts. Not only revenue, but feedback. If you do it right, people not only buy, but also tell you what's happening on your site as well. Use that data.
And mine is, if you're looking at an easy way to segment users, the first place to start is by segmenting those that are repeat visitors versus new visitors, and you can target them specifically within that. So with that, again, the 5 tenets of conversion. We have about 5 minutes for Q&A. So if you have a question, please step up to the microphone, and we're happy to have our panelists answer any questions you have. Don't be shy.